I'm Ezra Levant. It's June 11th, and you're watching Battleground. Hello, it is Monday. I'm Ezra Levant. I'm the president of the Rebel.media every weekday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I take an hour to chat. It's called Super Chat, which is a word that YouTube invented. It means that on the side of the screen, as you can see there's tons of comments just scrolling. But you can make your comments stand out in a super way, that's their word, by chipping in a few dollars, pounds, pesos, whatever. It's sort of fun to see, and the more dough you stick in, the longer it stays up there. And the reason this is good for YouTube creators is that the money's actually paid to us. It's not pocketed by YouTube, so that's a bit of a miracle. What I like to do in these 12 noon chats is show you some casual news stories that I don't go into as great depth on in my 8 p.m. Eastern Time shows. And of course, reading the comments is always fun. In fact, just as I was waiting for the top of the hour, I saw someone in the UK said, "Hey Ezra, did you hear what Nick Ferrari had to say about the imprisonment of Tommy?" Now, Nick Ferrari, I happen to know, is a UK radio host and other public personality. I don't think he's known at all on this side of the pond. The answer is no. I am unfamiliar with what he said, but just in the moments that I had there, I Googled and I saw the headline basically saying why Nick Ferrari thinks that Tommy Robinson protesters are all wrong. So he's against Tommy. I'll have to look into why, and on live TV is not the time to do it. But we will have reports to you. There was a ton. Can we put up the aerial image, the size of the crowd? When I first saw this image of the size of the crowd, I actually couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe that. I thought that maybe this was some other protest, some other event, because I mean, how do you know from the sky how big, if this is one rally or the other? My confidence monitor is not on, so maybe during a clip we can turn that on. But you see that? That is tens of thousands of people. That's at least 10,000 people. I've seen credible estimates put that anywhere from 15 to 20,000, excuse me. And I actually saw one that said 30,000. That strikes me as a bit high, but 10,000, absolutely believable that that's 10,000. And there were a number of amateur and professional videographers there who were kind enough to send us the footage, and thank you for that. And we will use it as needed. In fact, we'll use it a little bit today. I find these Free Tommy rallies very encouraging because they're so organic. And what I mean by that is they're not run by some big organization. Tommy himself is obviously not there to lead them. He's in prison in HMP Hull, Her Majesty's Prison Hull. Raheem Kassam, the former editor of Breitbart UK, was a keynote speaker, and of course Geert Wilders, that's on paper that looks like Geert Wilders. He's the leader of the second most popular party in the Netherlands and came within a few percentage of winning their election last time. He was there, and that probably stimulated the crowd. There was a ton of police there, and I received a very detailed report from a former Canadian police officer who said that in his view the police were trying to, I don't want to misquote him, but the police handled things and kept one crowd at bay and another in a manner that would have revved up any conflict. And I don't want to be paranoid, but when it comes to Tommy Robinson, you need a healthy sense of skepticism. I've seen the police deal unfairly with Tommy before. For those of you who recall, Tommy had a book launch event in Manchester a few months back, and he found a venue willing to take him. It was, I think it's a boxing venue, or it's a concert venue outside the city center, owned by someone who's a Tommy supporter, very high security. They would have 100 security, private security, police would be welcome. They would screen everyone coming in. It was going to be a sit-down dinner and a book launch for Tommy's book, Mohammed's Quran. So Tommy, and I remember dealing with Tommy, he was so excited that he finally found someone who was solid as a rock and would not cave in on the venue. Because of course Antifa bullied him, and other concerts pulled the plug. The Prodigy, that aging punk band, Breathe the Pressure, come play my game, I'll test you. That band, The Prodigy? They canceled a venue, a concert at the same venue because Tommy was going to be there, as if he's got cooties and Tommy germs would infect the whole place. So the owner of this venue, he dug in. It's a first-class venue. It's really I mean, you could see if they have concerts and whatnot there. So they held firm. There was all the leftists wagging their fingers. The venue owner held firm. The Prodigy canceled their concert. Probably cost the venue 20, 30 grand. He held firm. Tommy's invitations went out. People bought their tickets. And the day of, the police went to the venue owner and didn't say, we're here to help. They said, if you know what's good for you, you will cancel this venue. We can't guarantee your safety. Well, actually, that is sort of your job, to guarantee the safety, to keep order, isn't it? That was the police's way of basically saying, if you let Tommy Robinson have a venue in Manchester, and the Manchester city government is just awful. They're really as bad as Sadiq Khan in London, just awful. So when the police comes to you and you've got a venue worth millions of dollars and you have a huge staff and you're about to do a big event, but the police literally say, oh, hi there. Nice concert venue you have here. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. We highly recommend you cancel this event because something could happen. So the police literally forced or said things that caused such terror. In that he withstood the Antifa threats. He withstood the rival concert, other concert cancellations. But when the cops threatened him, what are you going to do? You can't argue with the cop. They got the guns. You can't argue with them. Tommy said to the cops, oh, well, I've got 1,000 friends coming to town, so I guess you'd rather have us all meet in the city square, and that's what we're going to do. And the cop said, oh, but what, mate? You're going ahead. I'm not going to try and do my British accents because either they're not funny or too funny or someone. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm just trying to capture the spirit of the cops saying, oh, what? You're going to go ahead? And instead of it being in a controlled, closed environment with security and metal detectors and orderly, you're going to have it in the city center? Yikes. And they literally asked the Manchester venue owner to proceed, to have it back on. And the Manchester venue said, yeah, no thanks, mate. Can you believe? So my point is, when I read this report from a Canadian retired law enforcement saying that he thought the police in the UK were handling it in a manner that exacerbated tensions, I thought, well, I've seen the police. Tommy videotapes his interactions with the police. I've seen the police screw over Tommy in Manchester, so why would it not happen to Tommy supporters in London? I think I saw a super chat go by. Ezra's first irregulars, keep up the good work. The protest was glorious. Thank you. I see another one from Andrew Sr. Hey, Ezra, the aerial image is St. George's Hall in Liverpool. It was taken when Liverpool won the Champions League in 2005. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I had seen that image. And like I just said, that could have been anywhere. Let me show you footage that absolutely for certain was from the Free Tommy rally this weekend, because you can see the signs. I'd like to start with a clip of, it was a couple speakers. I mentioned here at Wilders, Gerard Batten was there. He was the head of UKIP. We interviewed him the other day. Anne-Marie Waters is the head of For Britain, a new political party at Geert Wilders. Let's start with a clip from Anne-Marie Waters. She ran for the leadership of UKIP. Tommy endorsed her, supported her. She didn't make it. She started a new party called For Britain. Morrissey, the rock star, seems to like her a lot. So here's Anne-Marie Waters. And by the way, we're expecting to have an extended interview with Anne-Marie Waters, if not this week, next week. We've been in touch with her. She actually reached out to me after she saw the Gerard Batten interview. She said, hey, what about me? I said, sure. So we'll talk to her later. But here is Anne-Marie Waters. Here's a clip, it's not her whole speech, from the Free Tommy rally on the weekend.
Tommy Robinson is one of the bravest people in this country, if not the. He has faced endless persecution for speaking the truth. He has had his life placed in danger. He has had a barrage of lies thrown at him from the press, lies that put his life in danger, and lies that put all of our lives in danger, and lies that put our country in danger. Shame on the media.
I think that's true. And watching the media coverage of the rally, it's like they're living in another universe. Are we ready with the Geert Wilders clip? Do we have that one ready? Here's Geert Wilders. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of years ago. We flew to Amsterdam just for that. He gave us more than half an hour. It was a very interesting interview. I really enjoyed it. I won't say I'm close with Geert Wilders, but I chat with him from time to time by direct message on Twitter. I really like that. I really like that he fights hard. I really like that he has such a high security team, because if he didn't, he would be killed. He would be assassinated. In fact, when I went to Holland to interview him, we were worried that our interview would be scuppered, because literally the day before, there was someone of Moroccan origin on his security team that was detected was leaking details about Geert Wilders' whereabouts. I don't know what the details are, but you can imagine how terrifying that is, to have a bodyguard of Geert Wilders leaking the details. And you would like to, I mean, I know that Geert Wilders has staff around him who are from different ethnic and religious backgrounds. The idea, though, that you would put a Moroccan Muslim bodyguard on the case of Geert Wilders is sort of begging for trouble. I mean, it was an ethnic separatist who murdered Indira Gandhi. It was a Muslim Brotherhood separatist who murdered Anwar Sadat. I mean, when you are assigned to protect the life of someone, I'm afraid you do have to screen for politics and things of that sort. Without further ado, here's Geert Wilders.
And I am here to tell you that you will never walk alone. And we are here to tell the world, and the UK government in particular, free Tommy Robinson. And at this very moment, thousands of people all over the world are demonstrating in front of British embassies, from LA to Sydney, and over 500,000 people have already signed the petition for Tommy, and all with the one important message: free Tommy. So, Downing Street is just around the corner. So maybe once again, as loud as possible as we can, let them hear our message: free Tommy Robinson.
I love that chant. I love that chant. Hey, can we see if we can find, it just as B-roll is fine, some of the footage that those folks sent us. I just want to show from the crowd. I mean, it's good to see Anne-Marie Waters from the front giving a speech and Geert Wilders from the back. We didn't, I think we borrowed those shots from other photographers who sent them to us with permission. I'd like just to show, as B-roll, the background footage of the size of the crowd, from within the crowd. We got some of that by WeTransfer on the weekend. There were, would you agree with me that there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people there? I don't know if it was 10, 15, 20,000, I don't know. But the size of the protest seems to be getting bigger, not smaller. And the caliber of the speakers seems to be getting higher, not lower. I mean, listen, everyone has the moral worth to give a speech. It doesn't matter how big or little you are. But when you have the leaders of two parties there, For Britain and Gerard Batten, and Geert Wilders, the leader of a foreign party, the Party for Freedom in Holland, that you're getting big. You're getting big. And the mainstream media in the UK no longer ignores these rallies. They smear them. In this case, there were some folks who fought with police it was a very small number out of, let's say, just a conservative estimate. Let's say there were 10,000 people at the rally. Maybe 20 of them fought with cops. There were some arrests. But what do you think made the pages of the UK papers? The speeches? Do you think they quoted Anne-Marie Waters, Gerard Batten, Geert Wilders? Or do you think they just showed pictures of soccer hooligans, what they would have called soccer hooligans, fighting with the cops? And I say again, I've seen such shenanigans with the British police towards Tommy that who knows if those were agents provocateurs, as in people the cops send in, and I'm not saying they're on payroll, but just, hey, here's $50, here's 50 quid, go start a ruckus, and we can therefore tar all 10,000 people. So this, look at this. This is footage that someone sent us. Look at the size of that. Look at the size. You can see a For Britain sign there. You can see the UK Union Jack. There's a Generation Identitaire flag. You can see that purple flag is the UKIP flag, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's Trafalgar Square. You see the English flag, that's the St. George's Cross, as they call it. That is a big crowd. Would you agree with me? That's serious. And I think it's really organic. I mean, some tweets and Facebook and stuff like that, but this is not well funded or look at that, Free Tommy. That looks like it was obviously printed professionally, but unless I'm unaware, there is no organization. Tommy is the leader of Tommy, and he's in prison. That's quite something to see. It's 12:16. Let me make sure that I've caught up on all the super chats. I saw a couple. Keith McIntosh chipped in 2 quid. Thank you very much for that. And let me just scroll up a bit. I may have missed some. Tom Youngjohn, $2, says, thanks for focusing on Tommy's persecution. Well, you're welcome. The Corker chipped in $5, and thank you for all of that. We talk about Tommy because he used to work for us. He worked for us for a year. And we talk about Tommy because, like you, we care about the stories he tells and his ability to say them. And like you, we are concerned about the reaction he has elicited from the state. It's obvious that Muslim extremists and those who want to propagate Sharia would hate Tommy, that's a given. But Tommy's first best-selling book is called The Enemy of the State, because the state finds him a greater inconvenience than the Muslim extremism he exposes. Or if not a greater inconvenience, they find tackling him is easier. That's how I should phrase it. That's the path of least resistance. I've had this happen to me before. When I used to work at the Sun News Network, there was a protest of over 100 crazies coming to protest me at the Sun News Network. So I came down and I went on the street and we had a camera there and I said, well, let's talk to these people. So I walked out and I wasn't really worried. They were sort of, you know, it was broad daylight and rubby dubs and there was lots of cops there. So I was interviewing these people and I was just saying, why are you here? What are you mad about? I thought I was being very friendly. I was using my too friendly voice. Hi, why are you here? And then suddenly a police officer sort of scoops me up and whisks me away. And my first reaction was, they obviously saw something behind me that I didn't see, so they're coming to protect me. Thank goodness the cops are there, because they're pulling me away from behind. They obviously saw some threat that I didn't. That was my first thought. About 5 seconds later, I realized, no. There was no threat behind me. There was no threat at all. They just didn't like the interaction I was having, completely peaceful and voluntary, and instead of shooing away 100 protesters, it was much easier for them just to grab me and pull me away. And the camera was running, and do you think we can find that, Hannah, or is that too hard to find that clip? It would be from the old Sun News. If we find it, that was from the old Sun News day. It predates the Rebel. But my point is, that's not upholding the law. That's keeping the peace, I guess, but it's keeping the peace by cracking down on the easiest path. One of me is a lot easier for the cops to restrain than 100 Antifa types. They weren't quite Antifa back then. Same thing with Tommy. One Tommy Robinson is a lot easier to put in prison than tens of thousands of rape gangs, tens of thousands of rapists in hundreds of rape gangs. what's interesting about these huge rallies is that's maybe changing the math a little bit and making it harder to throw Tommy away. I'm going to read some regular chats. It's 12:20, about a third of our time is gone. I'll probably read chats for about 10 minutes. Then I'll show you a preview of our show called Off the Cuff Declassified. I'll give you a 1-minute clip on that. And then I will talk a little bit about some of the anti-Trump celebrities at the Tony Awards. I know most people are saying, Tony, what? What's that? It's for Broadway plays. And Robert De Niro made a guest appearance, and I'll tell you what he said. So let's read some super chat. Someone named Mitch Bushi said, all these people are Russian bots. Yeah, I know you're making a joke, but it's a good joke. Because the left, if they don't like something, they say, oh, it's Russian. The Russians hacked the streets of London, apparently, and 10,000 people showed up. Pamela Kingwell, good for you, British people. Yeah, I've said this before, is that I think the Britain of the courageous Winston Churchill, the Britain of, the Battle of Trafalgar Square, they were in Trafalgar, Horatio Nelson. Those Brits have been replaced by docile, passive, statist, bureaucratic-minded Brits, and it's glad to see that old British spirit come back. The spirit that slayed the dragon. Blake Runner, I would love to fly to Great Britain from Canada, chant with you people, free Tommy. Yeah, it's quite something. It's quite something to be in the midst of that sort of thing. Keith McIntosh says, my estimate was about 8,000 to 10,000 people total. One fellow I spoke with suggested the size far exceeded the free speech rally from a few weeks prior. The Tommy chant alone was worth the trip. Thanks for covering. Yeah, isn't that the truth? That Tommy chant, it's great. I mean, imagine having your own chant. Politicians would love for that kind of personal affection to be attached to them. Tommy's not a politician. He's far more authentic than that. And I think, in short answer to your question, Keith, the reason that people have showed out in greater numbers is quite simply that Tommy is in great jeopardy. He's no longer just being hassled by cops. He's in prison, 13-month sentence. My understanding of British law is he won't serve the full sentence, but he'll serve, I would imagine, at least a third of it, which is a bloody long time to serve. Let's read some more. Michelle Thompson, are the police going to release Tommy? Is Jada in jail? You're talking about Jada Franson and her partner, Paul Golding. They were arrested. They're the leaders of a party called Britain First, which is sort of a party. It was a Facebook page and some journalism. They were arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and imprisoned, and I know that Paul was beat up in prison. They're one standard deviation more rambunctious than Tommy in some of their words, and I don't know enough about them to say that I support them in the manner. I know Tommy very well and support him, but what I will say about Paul and Jada is that they were, like Tommy, concerned with the Sharia creep in the UK. So this is what the police do. They throw you in jail. They don't have the First Amendment over there. And so Paul Golding and Jada Franson and Tommy Robinson are all in prison because they don't have a First Amendment in the United Kingdom. That's a fact. Okay, Bolin Xiao says prison and police are now run by Muslims in the UK. There's some truth to that. The prisons certainly are, at least most of them, prison gangs. John Zealand, why did Lucy Brown get booed at the rally? I don't know. Lucy Brown used to work with us at the Rebel, and then she worked with Tommy. I just don't know enough about what happened there. I like Lucy, and I don't know what that controversy is about, so I can't explain. Images by Laurie says, free Tommy, the bravest of men, warning his brethren that their sheep they see are wolves devouring the children. Yeah, and that's the thing, is these aren't just rape gangs. They're child rape gangs. The case that Tommy was reporting about from Leeds, the youngest victim was 11. Do you know how little an 11-year-old is? That's who's been raped again and again and again and again and again. Cottage BR says, reminds me of what they did to the Trump rallies before he was elected with sending violent people in the crowd to cause trouble and make Trump supporters look violent. You're exactly right. I think the Democrats called that bird dogging. That's what them Democrats called it. Send people down to cause a fuss, to inflame things, to provoke and pick fights. They would send someone early to be the very first person in line to say something insane to journalists, to pick fights with Trump supporters, basically to cause a ruckus. And that was exposed very well by Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. That's what's going on here, but I think it's worse. I mean, Tommy told me that on several occasions, they detected that people who were joining his organization, whether it was the EDL or later, they were paid infiltrators, including by either British authorities or foreign authorities, that they were actually trying to infiltrate his group. Tommy told me about some guy who was very eager. Oh, I'm so EDL, mate. And I got 400 guys, let's go and burn down a mosque. Like someone who would say things so insane like that Tommy would never say, clearly trying to radicalize the EDL for its own demise, either to make it crumble under its own weight or to give a pretext for police to prosecute it as a terrorist group or something. Those were police authorities from the UK, and Tommy implied to me there may have been other countries too. He said he was always on guard for people coming in undercover, but they were not there to listen to what he was actually doing. They were there to effectively plant things on him, not like drugs or something like that, but to plant on him we were going to burn down a mosque. No, that was the government mole trying to provoke that said that. And it would not surprise me one bit if these yobs who were fighting police were government moles. And they either were sort of high-level, very strategic moles, or they were just rubby-dubs given 25 quid and told, go, here's some beer, go make a fuss. Let's read a few more questions. Frank Dempsey says, yep, saboteurs, I think you're right. Jake Wright says, is Tommy still in Hull prison? As best I know. Bolin Xiao, all mainstream media are providing fake news and influence people against Trump, Brexit, UKIP, and other national things. I think there's a fair bit of truth to that. Oh, I think a super chat is here. Let me scroll up and find it. Tom Youngjohn, any proof Tommy's still alive? Well, I understand that a family member met with him yesterday. I haven't had a report from that family member yet. But as far as I know, Tommy is alive. As far as I know, Hull Prison is one of the safer prisons in the UK for Tommy. I also think that God forbid, Tommy should be hurt or God forbid killed. I think that news would not be able to stay silent. It would just be too shocking. And those 20,000 people you see in the street, or 10,000 or whatever it is, I don't think they would be peaceful if Tommy were to be killed in prison, which is so predictably what could happen by putting him in prison. Hey, here's a super chat from El Chepacabra, who says, have you heard Owen Benjamin's Tommy Robinson song, How They Rule Ya? It's a gem. You're right. Can we call that video up? I saw it, and Owen Benjamin is a woke, red-pilled comedian, and I've never watched his shows in person. I've seen a couple of his YouTube vids, and this one, it's touching, it's well sung, the lyrics are strong, it's a song you know, a tune you know, and I found myself watching the whole thing. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but let me give you 2 minutes of Owen Benjamin's song. So El Chepacabra, thanks for the great recommendation, How They Rule Ya, which is sung to the tune of Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Take a listen.
There was a secret court. Journalists weren't allowed to report, but you don't really care for.
Can we get the original? Just because I want to give credit to the man who I think came up with himself. So that was a cover of Owen Benjamin's song. That's the song, but that was a cover, and I want to show the fella himself. Let me know when you got that. It's not critically important, but it's a good one. Let me read some more chats in the meantime. Lauren Southern, spelled the masculine way, says, I love the chats that Owen and Stefan have. I haven't watched those, but maybe I should. I just don't have the time. There's so much going on. There's so many people saying anything in this world of citizen journalism. We put 10 videos up a day. I don't even have time to watch all those before they go up. Keith McIntosh has another super chat. He says, Quebec police infiltrated demonstrators and were main instigators in the 2007 Montebello leaders meeting. Lots of coverage on that one. They were busted wearing police issue boots. I think I remember that. And there were some cases, I can't remember if it was in the UK or in Canada or the US, about some of these undercover cops who had sex with Antifa women. And I would say to that, I hope they got danger pay. But there were these ethical questions of these police were coming in and lying, and they had a personal relationship with us, and they kissed us, and they had sex with us, and the whole time they were just going undercover. I think that's what undercover means. Undercover doesn't have to mean under the covers. But if you're undercover, you have to take on that whole new identity. And I think there should definitely be rules about undercover cops, but I'm not sure how. If it's okay to have undercover cops, and if they're following rules, and if they're not committing crimes themselves, and if they're under authority, under careful observation and supervision, if they're going undercover to break open a drug gang or a kidnapping or human trafficking gang, I don't see a large moral difference with them going undercover to stop Antifa, who are almost invariably violent. And if they have sex with an Antifa person along the way, they're braver than I sure would be. But there's some questions there. I'm poking some fun at Antifa, but I think police, I think undercover police, there's a place for them. But what I'm talking about here is not running with the devil to keep track of the devil, but running with the devil to encourage them. And what I'm telling you that I've observed in the case of Tommy, and here in Canada with the so-called hate speech police, is that the police make the hate crime because there's not enough of it existing. The police provoke the incidents because they're not watching for someone else to commit a crime, they're committing it. Here, we've got that Owen Benjamin original version. Take a look.
I heard there was a secret court where journalists weren't allowed to report, but you don't really care for freedom, do you? It goes like this: without the fifth, the gavel falls and they cuff your wrist. It's not okay, this is how they rule ya, how they rule ya, how they rule ya, how they rule ya, how they rule ya.
He's surprisingly good. Maybe it's not surprising. Maybe I just don't know him. Maybe he's good. Like I thought that was well written. I thought it was well performed, well sung. I'm not even going to call it funny. Like he's a comedian, but that's not even a joke. That's just I found that a very touching song. And thank you. I think that was El Chapacabra who suggested it. Future Millionaire chipped in 40 Indian rupees. Thank you very much for that. I've seen Mexican pesos. I've seen Swedish kroner. It's 12:33. I'm going to read some Tommy comments for maybe 5 more minutes, and then in the last third of the show, I'm going to switch to Robert De Niro, just because it's too much fun. But why don't we take a very short break, and I want to show you a promo for another show we have here called Off the Cuff Declassified. The host of that is named John Cardillo. He's a former NYPD cop who's now a pundit, and you've probably seen him on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter. And I haven't seen this promo, but it's on his show tonight, so let's take a look at what that's about.
Today on Off the Cuff Declassified, the war words between Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau escalates. What can we expect from the Trump-Kim summit in North Korea? We'll discuss. Robert De Niro goes unhinged at the Tony Awards, and a former Secret Service agent warned authorities in Parkland, Florida, that Stoneman Douglas High School was unsafe weeks before the shooting.
There you have it. That's John Cardillo. I was just in that moment there, I was looking at some of this chat comments. Jake Wright says, join us next protest, the 14th of July in London for Tommy. Now, Jake, can you tell me who is us when you say join us? Who's the group? Is it you and some friends? Is it a Facebook page? Are you with Raheem Kassam, who was involved? Are you with some of Tommy's staff? And now that's a month away, so it sounds like there's lots of good planning there. Tell me a little bit more, because if someone shows up, will it just be you and them, or is it you and an army? I don't know how the event on Saturday was really organized, but I'm very pleased that it was organized, and I'm very impressed with the size of it. I'm just going to read a couple more. Buster Edwards says, the cops that had sex with members of groups they were infiltrating were in the UK, the Met. One of them had a child with the suspect. Police protected him from child support. Holy cow, there's going undercover, and then there's just, I think that's probably going too far, don't you? No Name says, made me weep and my eyebrows fell off. You're talking about, can we call up that Trudeau eyebrows clip, just the short one? Justin Trudeau, I mean, we could talk a bit, my whole show at 8 p.m. tonight, I've got like 45 minutes on Justin Trudeau. So I don't want to give away too much stuff here today. I hope you tune in at my 8 p.m. show. But Justin Trudeau did a press conference, and it looked like his eyebrows were falling off. I don't know how. Just play 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Just take a look.
I have consistently stood up for Canadian interests, consistently demonstrated where we disagree, but done so in a polite and cordial context. I think that's what Canadians have always expected of me, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
What's that all about? I mean, I know there are people, I think they're usually women, who don't have eyebrows and they have a tattoo. I've seen eyebrow tattoos, actually. In fact, a former political leader in Canada named Audrey McLaughlin had tattooed eyebrows. And you didn't even notice, really. What were these? It looks sort of like the red bird on Angry Birds or something. Can you pull up just the red Angry Birds, just for comparison? Now, I think maybe it was just a shot, maybe it was the light, maybe it was the angle. I can't believe that Justin Trudeau would have fake eyebrows, but it sure looked that way. Someone later said it was just the angle of the camera and whatever, but it just made me think of Angry Birds. I don't know. You know what they look like. We don't need to show you the picture. All right, it's 12:37, and I think there was some comments. I mean, Hannah, did I miss any super chats? Have we got all the super chats? I think we're all caught up. Okay. I'm sorry, you mentioned the eyebrows, so I had to do it. Let's switch gears. I want to talk about Robert De Niro. Now, I'll admit I love De Niro in some of his films. I love him he was in The Godfather, right? He was, it's been so long since I've seen that. He's in some great movies, and he's built for some movies, and he just plays a mobster so well. He was in, I don't want to get the name. He's in so many great films, and then he's in a lot of duds. He was in The Intern, I think. I guess he just needed the cash. And then he was in that movie when him and I think Morgan Freeman and the other old farts, I think it was called Old Farts or something, where they were going on, like a grandpa's trip to Vegas or something. Like, he's doing a lot of pitiful movies like Michael Caine. Michael Caine, he does an enormous, he's retired now, but he's had an enormous number of films, and not all of them are great. But as he got older, he had great roles. I even think Michael Caine's roles in the Batman movies were strong. But as he got old, he didn't get desperate. He kept his artistic standards, I think. Michael Caine at age 70 was just as powerful as Michael Caine at age 40. Can you tell me the last time Robert De Niro had a movie that made you say, that is great? as opposed to, ha ha, look at De Niro in that. Like even Meet the Fockers, which I really liked. It was starting to be a parody of himself. The Circle of Trust. You know? It was funny, but I think the jokes were at De Niro's expense. It was sort of like, here's this grave, deep, passionate actor, Raging Bull. He was Raging Bull, right? Who has this whole career of being serious. And the reason why he was a good fit for Meet the Fockers was because he was basically selling out his whole legacy and making fun of it. Like Robert De Niro for an entire career was a heavy-duty, tough guy, hot temper, lots of passion, serious, deadly. Cape Fear. Maybe his greatest performance in my mind. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can we grab the trailer to Cape Fear with De Niro, where he played a prisoner, tatted up from knave to his chops, put in prison because his own lawyer sold him out, gets out of prison, and has a vengeance plan against his lawyer. I just want to show you. Can you call up either B-roll of the trailer? Yeah, you can go up and put it up there while I'm talking about it. I'm going to say this is what, 20, oh, look at that, 1991. So yeah, put the sound up. Let's listen to the sound up a bit.
Hi, Dad. You look tired.
Oh, thanks. I needed that. Yes.
Hola.
This town is so very nice, and everything is just so very, very nice. Sam, somebody's out there.
What's your connection with this fella?
I was his lawyer.
But you shafted him somehow, right?
And what was he in prison for?
No, really. What did you do?
Have you been following me? Well, it's a small town. Every way you turn, I guess we're gonna run into each other.
Dad, you should have just punched him out. Yeah, you know how to fight dirty. You do that for a living.
This guy, he threatened you?
He's clever, so that the law can't touch him.
Come out wherever you are.
You have a daughter around 16?
16? What?
Every good man's gotta wrestle with the devil. I want you the hell off my property!
You, sir, will be hearing from the Ethics Committee.
We got this freaking psychopath in our faces. I mean, who knows what's true and what isn't?
I'm just losing my mind here. I called the vet, and then he died.
Lee, I told you not to let him out.
I didn't let him out! I didn't let him out!
It would be unethical of me to advise a citizen to take the law into his own hands.
You thought about me last night, didn't you? Evening, ladies.
Hello?
I think we're alone now.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Black Forest. Maybe I'm a big bad wolf. Do you mind if I put my arm around you?
I tell you, that's a hell of a show. That's a hell of a show. 27 years old, that movie. So it feels a little bit dated. Let me tell you, that is a terrifying movie. De Niro is perfect. You could see he was fit and tough back then. The tats were great, out of prison, diabolical, Cape Fear, perfect movie. What's my point? De Niro used to make movies like that all the time. A little bit crazy, a little bit tough, raw, powerful. And then he just sort of said, all right, well, I need some cash, and I'm not getting the great roles, and I've had a few shows that suck, but let me just, if you pay me $100,000, I'll have a cameo there. If you pay me $500,000, I'll let, you know, if you pay me $1 million, you can make me the headliner in some stupid slapstick comedy. But here's my point. I mean, Schwarzenegger actually did some great comedy, believe it or not. The Rock managed to, I mean, there are people who can be tough, and The Rock's never been that tough. But De Niro's comedy work only works in the juxtaposition to his tough guy work. It's as if he sold out his whole repertoire for some gags. That's how lame he is. Tell me the last time De Niro had a hit. Can you tell me? Tell me the last time he had a hit. I see a super chat, and then I'm going to show you why I'm ranting about De Niro. Andrew Sr., Ezra, who's going to win the World Cup? I have no clue. I don't even know who. I can't even answer the question. I can't even. That's how clueless I am about sports, at least the World Cup. I do know you're talking about soccer, or as you say over there, football. Here's my point. Robert De Niro, who has not had a hit in a decade, well, he knows that he can still get attention, not with a hit movie, but by swearing at Donald Trump. Take a look.
I'm going to say one thing. Fuck Trump. It's no longer down with Trump, it's fuck Trump.
Wow, well, he's very, very courageous to say that to a group of Broadway stars and Hollywood insiders. That took courage. Who knows? They might have booed him for that. He might have been blacklisted and he wouldn't be asked to do Meet the Fockers Part 17 anymore. Listen, I like politics, as you know. I think there ought to be some parts of our lives that aren't political. I don't think every single goddamn Hollywood play or Broadway show has to be political. But that's all you got? A profanity. And it's a reminder that actors, like a lot of musicians, they're not actually saying their own words 90% of the time, and they're not singing their own words probably 50% of the time. They're just hired to read what someone else wrote. I think Robert De Niro really, really needs a scriptwriter, because if the most eloquent thing he can say, the most dramatic, compelling, shocking, persuasive thing he can say is to swear at Donald Trump, that's just not persuasive. Cape Fear, you were riveted. I was. This F you, F Trump, that's the new resistance. It used to be down with Trump. Actually, I never heard that. Now it's F Trump, and they were thrilled. They were thrilled. He probably thought he said F Trump, but I think what 62 million Trump voters heard was F you. And it reminds me, it's a cousin to the NFL fight, where all these millionaire insiders are creating a mutual admiration society, an echo chamber, reinforcing each other. But the rest of America is, if you're talking about me and I might not like everything Trump did, but I voted for him or I support him, and so you're basically saying F you, and now I don't really want to pay to see your movies anymore. Don't tell me that didn't happen in part to the NFL. I see a super chat. Jabber Wolf says, doesn't the FCC now have rules to fine people for profanity on TV? Did they let that slide for liberals? It's a good question. I understand that was a live broadcast. That was the Tony Awards. No baloney. How many people in 1,000 knows what? If you will go to someone on the streets and say, what's a Tony Award? I don't think they would know. The Oscars, I think most people would know. If you would say the Grammys, I think probably half of people would know. The Tony Awards, what an insular inside game. If you think De Niro was bad, I want to show you an actress. Now, she's a Brit, as you'll detect, but she's in America now. But she doesn't like the American president, and she has a very stern message for him. Take a look at this.
One thing that's surprising about Harry Potter is that even though it's not as overtly political, like something like Angels in America, I sort of feel like there are moments in it, there are things that happen with he who must not be named, that have real resonance today, particularly in America. Are you aware of that? Do you feel that?
I really do believe that that's why this is resonating a lot at the moment. London, when it started, beautiful, and there was a moment we went, okay, this is the story we're telling. But now, 2 to 3 years later, since we've opened in London, to be here, you go, actually, this story is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And we us human beings, are all fighting to be connected, but especially to be seen. If you're not seen or not heard, that's where dangerous stuff happens. That's where people under the radar do very cruel things. And that's what this play is about. And it's about bringing things into the light, letting your light shine. This is what JK has always been about, let the darkness out into the light. And that's why I'm very proud to be here telling this story right now, because as you intimated, those things are very important.
Should the president come see the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child?
No.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Oh, I thought that the message, and it was a message that someone else said, was, why don't we just bake people their cake and just serve them anyways? So I get it. So force a Christian cake baker to inscribe a message in icing on a cake that they don't like. Just do it. But the President of the United States cannot come to watch a show in the United States because some Brit says, no, I believe in freedom of association. But again, you know, I don't think the President of the United States was going to go and see a Harry Potter Broadway show. I mean, I don't know the man's tastes in full, but there's something really weird about Harry Potter shows. The left loves those books. It's like it's the only books they read, and every cultural reference, every political reference is always Harry Potter, and I just can't get into it. I mean, I don't even know if there's I mean, on the right, I think a lot of right-wingers read Ayn Rand. I did when I was in high school. But then they sort of move on. I mean, they just don't keep I mean, Harry Potter, that's a children's series. That's, I mean, not for infants, but that's like for tweens and teens. I don't think Donald Trump is going to go and watch a Harry Potter Broadway show. There's a great tweet by James Woods who said, I have heartbreaking news, Mr. President. I know you're in Korea right now trying to solve that problem and bring world peace, but I got some heartbreaking news for you. You are not welcome at the Harry Potter Broadway show. It's just funny. 12:52. You know, a lot of people who go see Broadway shows, they live in New York, of course. The Broadway shows are extremely expensive. You know, there are some tickets on Broadway that are now more than $500. I'm not talking about scalp tickets. I'm talking tickets, this is like the price on the face of it. $500. In fact, Bruce Springsteen has had a show on Broadway, and I'm going from memory here, I haven't looked at the story in a while. His average ticket price is $500. $500. Yeah, it's all those aging baby boomers who really liked Bruce Springsteen 30 years ago, and now they've got some money, so they don't mind dropping a G note for a more intimate, evening with Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it sort of makes sense. If you're a millionaire, and this is your childhood memories of Bruce Springsteen, you'll drop a G note, make it a fancy weekend in Manhattan. But beyond that elite Manhattan circle, I mean, I think Broadway shows are something that people from flyover country save up for, and they have a big trip, and they go to Times Square, and maybe they take in a show. At what point in time does that NFL phenomenon kick in, and they say, you know what? No thanks. If Mike Pence is not welcome at the Madison Broadway musical, and if Donald Trump is not welcome at the Harry Potter musical, because you know he wants to go, at what point in time do flyover Americans say, you know what, I'm not really interested either? I think I saw a super chat come by. Let me take a look, see. Thanks for supporting Tommy. After chat open to all. Thank you. Let's read some more chats. Oh, I think I might have missed one, so let me go to my emails. Here we go. Outdaft UK says being a celebrity is about being popular. Fake. Yeah, some of it can be. I don't think anyone in America knows who that lady was, that Brit who said Trump's on. Like, Like, first of all, she's from Britain, obviously. Now, there's some successful Brits in America. Piers Morgan had a short but, interesting run in America. He won The Apprentice in America, which gave him a bit of a following in America. He didn't do well in his TV talk show. Look, there's just cultural differences between the two countries. But that actress on Broadway, I just don't think any Americans know who she is. I just don't think they do. So I don't think it's about being popular. In her case, she probably has some talent. And she probably knows the part. She probably got really good at it in the UK, and so they're on tour, and sure, why not live in New York for a season? What a great city. So she's trying to stack her popular support against Donald Trump, so I think she's going to lose that match. It's 12:55. Let's take some more questions. Chrissy James says, check out Jordan B. Peterson re Harry Potter. I will, I will. And I don't want to prejudge what he has to say. The Night Green says, British people don't know who she is. It does not surprise me. I learned a word in the UK. I learned a lot of words. I told you some of the words that Tommy taught me. And some of them I knew, I just didn't see them in practice a lot. Like he calls everyone bruv or mate. I think that's fun. But one word I learned, and I don't think it was from him, I can't remember who, was to call fancy starlets and other sort of red carpet celebrities, to call them lovies, L-U-V-V-I-E-S. That makes me laugh. Kata JBR says she was probably paid to say that. No, that's where you're wrong. I think she just knows that that's how they think in the hive mind, and if she says that, like De Niro, she'll be safe. I mean, imagine if De Niro would have come out and said something actually courageous, like we all have our differences with Donald Trump, but let's wish him well in his visit in North Korea. Millions of people's security and freedom lies. That would be brave. You'd probably get some boos, but that would be meaningful, maybe. Imagine if he said, it's been 6 months, but we can't forget the brave women and men in Iran who are rising up for democracy and to take off their hijab. So you don't even have to mention Trump. You could talk about Iran and the People's Rebellion there, or, I don't know. You could talk about something that actually maybe could, I don't know, prison reform. Kim Kardashian just got a black woman who was sent, I'm talking about that lady, Alice Johnson, I think is her name, in prison for 21 years, got that prison sentence commuted. You saw the video of her being released. It was so beautiful. That's what Kim Kardashian did. She said, all right, I have a public reputation, I have some momentum, some political capital. I'm gonna work Trump. I'm gonna get him to let this woman free. And she did. What's De Niro done? And okay, fine. You don't like Trump. You hate him so much. You don't want to go to him for his power of the pardon. Fine. Well, do something else. Do something else. Instead, to stand up and say the easiest virtue signaling thing, F Trump, like it wasn't even creative. It wasn't even funny. It wasn't even original. It's just, boy, without a writer, De Niro is awful. I want to remember Robert De Niro as he was in Cape Fear. In my mind, the most powerful performance I've ever seen him in. Instead, he's just getting old, isn't he? And he needs a writer, and it's sort of pitiful that you get more attention for cursing the president than you do for any of your last 10 films. That's too bad. Jungle Jr., Hollywood equals boring. Well, that's not true, but so much of what they do is so politically propagandistic that I think it's discounted. I mean, you're probably too younger to remember it, but I remember the Gulf War. There was probably a dozen anti-war movies cranked out. All of them lost money. They were so unwatchable, but it was Hollywood virtue signaling in its own way. Jolly Jester, Ezra, people don't want you watching Clifford the Big Red Dog. Okay. I don't know much about that. I know there's a children's book series. I've read those to my kids. The Green Knight, Robert Dementia. No, I don't think so. I don't think he's lost his mental faculties. I think he's just lost his momentum. We got 1 minute left. Let me just, I see someone, Norway, Rob Henderson, July 14th is the next massive Free Tommy Robinson demonstration. I would ask again, Norway, can you tell me more about that? Can you tell us more about that? Are you associated with any group? Is that just happening organically? Is there a Facebook page? Are you working with any of Tommy's staff or family? Or Kev, Carol, his cousin? I would just like to know because this weekend's event was huge and it was very successful. I like the idea that July 14th gives you more than 4 weeks planning time. That could be huge. I'm just curious, and I think our viewers are as well. You know what? I think I covered all the super chats. We're at the top of the hour. I appreciate your time. For those of you who want more on me between the Trudeau and Trump spat, I got my whole show on it today. I'm going to be going on at some length about it, and then I'll be interviewing my friend Manny Montenegrino, who's also very tough on this file. So that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find out more at therebel.media/shows. It's 1 p.m. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters in Toronto, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.